Good afternoon, NFL, NBA, fans of all types, sizes, shapes, and forms. Welcome, Chris, the double-sided Axmann.
Hey.
Who has, how are you? Welcome. Oh, hey, I didn't see you there. What do you know?
I'm doing great. And if you didn't see me, you can borrow these. I'm not sure if this works, but I could probably.
You could always try. Yeah, more like double vision for me. You could always chalk that up as being double vision. But hey, welcome to the show, Chris. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on, man.
Yeah, absolutely. It's my pleasure. We're going to jump right into this. There's been a lot of hoopla, no pun intended on the word hoop, when we're talking about the game taking the 2017 NBA All-Star Game out of Charlotte. What are your thoughts about that? Do you think that was the right move by the NBA and Adam Silver?
So, you remember last year when Rajon Rondo had that altercation with the referee? He called him, an six-lettered F slur, for a gay man. And then, that ultimately outed him, and he got suspended for one game. And after that, when the whole Donald Sterling thing went down, I think that they really took a hard line on, civil liberties, civil rights, and, not being discriminatory. But I think they really dropped the ball with the Rondo thing. I would have been, much more repercussion, talked about it a lot more, really maybe not put the hammer down, but really made it clear that type of atmosphere is not going to be tolerated in the modern NBA. So I think in a lot of ways this makes up for that. I think it was a no-brainer.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. Look, when you're talking about relocation, doing things that are of a benefit for an organization, allowing more fans to really take part of the festivities, pre and post game and such, you're really taking the you're taking the initiative to really make sure that the game is sound and fortified with all parties involved. So a good move by Silver, good move by the NBA, and look, you don't have to make apologies. Nobody does.
Yeah.
The fact alone is that they did it for the benefit of the fans and obviously the benefit for the NBA. So good signs for them. I wish them the absolute best when you're talking about what kind of fandom will be had at the 2017 NBA All-Star Game. And we're looking at updates here. I'm looking at ESPN.com, and you're looking at Aaron Brooks for the Pacers. They signed him, which I thought was a really good move. Of course, he's been around a long time, 8-year guy. What are your thoughts about Aaron Brooks? And do you think he'll make a real positive statement, averaging 7.1 points and 2.6 assists per game for the Chicago Bulls?
Yeah, so I think it's probably a good pickup. Anyone who can get the ball through the hoop from more than 3 or 4 feet away, I think is a good pickup for the Chicago Bulls at this point. I'm not so sure about the fit because I think the way that the Bulls are going to structure their offense is sort of a reverse of what the Miami Heat had back in their superstar team, where they had, their guards inside and their big men out, right? So they've got Mirotic and they've got some shooting from Dougie McBuckets, but, then they have Rondo, Wade, Butler. None of them could shoot. So, Aaron Brooks definitely helps them play a more traditional style with their guards on the out and bigs on the inside. I guess the problem is, or the question is rather, how effective is Bobby Portis going to be getting those buckets inside if they are spreading the floor with guys like Aaron Brooks?
Yeah, you're really going to have to ask that question. You're going to have to see it. Clearly, the Summer League had some indicators in regards to who was playing well, who wasn't playing well, the guys you give the breaks to and the guys you don't. So hopefully for lack of a better term, with the acquisition, I don't know who was a win or lose when you're talking about who gained the most, whether it be the Miami Heat who lost Dwayne Wade or Chicago Bulls who do something with Dwayne Wade, who's nearly at the tail end of his career, but has done absolutely wonderful things while with Miami. I look for him to basically do the same thing. I just don't know that the coaching system and the dynamics with the Bulls will be to Dwayne Wade's benefit. What are your thoughts about that move over to Chicago from Miami?
Well, I think that it's sort of a question of where does Dwayne Wade fall on the spectrum between a guy like Lamar Odom and a guy like, say, maybe Aaron Brooks, right? Aaron Brooks has been all over the league, played for different teams, and Lamar Odom really was taken out of his element as soon as he left Los Angeles. Now, Dwayne Wade, I'd be willing to assume that he will continue to be a professional into Chicago, that, some of the question marks around him in the city of Chicago, his ex-wife, that type of stuff won't affect his play, but we don't really know. He's been in Miami since he's been drafted. He's never, it's never even been considered that he would ever leave. So, I'm looking for Dwayne Wade to be just as much of a professional, just as powerful and effective as he's been his whole career, or at least as he's been lately. But, it's always hard. It's always hard to project with stuff like this when a lifer leaves their home.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. Look, you become accustomed to the coaching staff, accustomed to the environment that you play in, similar to that of up and moving from one house to another, from the East Coast to West Coast or vice versa. And you really have to think about the dynamics of it. Will it be a good fit? Will it not be a good fit? It can't just be all about money. Let's just put that aside for a second. It's not always about money. It's about where you're effective. Does a player fit the system? Does the system fit the players? You really have to ask yourself, not only as a fan, but from an organization and as a player, is this the right move for me? And if so, will it benefit me moving forward? So,
well, you see, I think it was a money thing, but not on Dwayne Wade's end. I think that Pat Riley saw, there's two more examples here, right, of players who have had experiences. Steph Curry, he's got injury problems. He gets a small contract. That set the Warriors up for the dominance that they've had and are projected to have. Meanwhile, Kobe Bryant, older player, older guard, gets a huge contract that sort of stifles the Lakers for, who knows how they're going to work out. So I think Pat Riley watches that and thinks, okay, are we going to get Dwayne Wade on a good contract and maybe become the Warriors because we'll have money to spend, or are we going to be the Lakers and have all our money tied up in someone who's 35, 36? So I think that that's where Pat Riley was coming from. And, honestly, it's hard for me to say on an emotional level, like, who's right and who's wrong. But the money talks, I guess.
Well, money talks, but either way, you have to recognize where you've been and where you're going to next and how that's really going to benefit you and your career. Is it a tarnishment? Nobody knows that yet. But one thing is for certain, he's going to put his heart on his sleeve and play his heart out for Chicago, not only for the fans, but for himself to prove ultimately that he can do it anywhere. I mean, LeBron James proved that this past year with the Cavaliers winning his first championship ever, to say, okay, I can leave and people burn my jerseys, but I come back and everybody wants my jersey again. So you can always ask the question, did they use lighter fluid or did they use charcoal? I don't know. Propane versus charcoal. You can have that question. I don't know. But speaking of a Los Angeles entity, Brandon Bass, who joins the Clippers after being with the Lakers, with 7.2 points, 4.3 rebounds, and a 1.1 assists in 66 games. Do you think this is a power move? I mean, a struggle between the Los Angeles teams, or was this somebody that was just clearly available and just another camp body?
Well, I think that it's a blend of a couple things. I think that, probably first and foremost is Brandon Bass's former relationship with Coach Doc Rivers. Brandon Bass was on the Celtics for a very long time. For the majority of his career, he was on the Celtics. Recently, he went to the Mavericks and then the Lakers, but he was on the Celtics for a string of years, including when Doc Rivers was coach. So I think that Brandon Bass is another one in that string of players who Doc Rivers calls up on his phone and says, hey, Paul Pierce, come down, try out. We're going to put you on a small contract and see how you affect the team. A guy like Hito Turkoglu maybe. I don't think he was ever on the team, but a guy like that, right? And he sort of gets some crap for that. And I think the other thing is that Brandon Bass last year had a really transformative career or a transformative year in his career in a weird way, because he played really good defense and he sort of played within the structure of an offense. When I kept accidentally saying Brandon Pass, because when he was on the Celtics, he had this nickname. All of his teammates would call him Brand Don't Pass, because he would always just put up a mid-range jumper from wherever he was. So I think that it's a good pickup for the Clippers, maybe a questionable fit next to Spates, but it probably comes down to his relationship with Doc Rivers.
Right. Doc Rivers knows how to acquire the right components and fell short with the Clippers this past year. But when you say Brandon Pass, I really have to say pass, because it's a bass fish. I usually wouldn't throw a bass fish that I caught with a hook bat, but I'm going to pass on Bass. You got to separate those two guys. I'm going to have to pass on Mr. Bass here. Throw him back. He's too small. Maybe next year. And then, everybody wants to beat this entire Kevin Durant thing in the dirt. We're not really going to discuss him a whole lot, but I will say there was a multimedia rage in regards to a former player or constituent of his in the NBA saying it's a slap in the face. I just ran across that on Twitter. What are your thoughts about that? I mean, do you really believe that it was a slap in the face that Kevin Durant passed on the Knicks? As slight of a chance that it was.
Oh, well, did he pass on the Knicks specifically?
It was a very small chance. I mean, they were trying to sign him, but for some reason he just chose the Warriors. And I think an NBA player thought that you're going to pass on us. The Knicks have been in a rebuilding team. Let's call it what it is. They've been in a rebuilding ploy for a very long time. So I think that they're contenders this year? We'll get into that near the end of this broadcast. But when you're talking about the New York Knicks and the rebuilding, they're still rebuilding. I don't know what kind of players they're going to acquire as far as if they do anything in free agency or they do anything with the players they currently have right now. I don't know. But
yeah, so a writer on my site, allmightyballer.com from New York, recently wrote a really interesting article from the perspective of a Knicks fan talking about, the buzz that Kevin Durant, considering the Knicks, created in the city. How the garbage men were on the back of their trucks talking to people. It's like, do you hear that Kevin Durant might come? And he told a little anecdote about a story of him and his friend going to the New York store on Manhattan and buying a Derrick Rose jersey. So, I think that, the Knicks come up in this conversation because they're the Knicks. It's a cornerstone of the NBA as a franchise, with Patrick Ewing and Pat Riley and the success that they've had. I think the problem is when Kevin Durant said in his press conference at the end of the year that it's going to be a basketball decision. I think I think in retrospect, we should have known that he was going to go to the Warriors. Because if he had said it was a media decision or a legacy decision, or if he had said it was a legacy decision, he'd stay in OKC, a media decision, maybe go to New York, but it was a basketball decision, and this Warriors team is going to be ridiculous. So, I mean,
absolutely.
I think that was his thinking.
Right. Look, lots of people will have conversations about what the media is going to make me decide where I'm going to go. Come on, man. If you rely on the media, Twitter, Facebook, to really justify where you're going to go, you're talking to the wrong people. You're listening to the wrong people. If you're making it based on a media decision, that's just not going to work out too well. I don't see it working out for any NBA, NFL, NCAA team or otherwise. But speaking of a team who's been in the struggle for quite some time, free agent Miles Plumlee resigned with Milwaukee, and this is an astronomical number. I don't know that he's not worth it, but I'm not going to say that he is. 4-year deal worth $52 million. I mean, he averaged 5.1 points, but he's more known for his rebounds and his defensive scheme. Good sign, bad sign by the Bucks.
I'm sort of in the same boat as you. I don't know yet, but it was a reasonable sign. I get it. I think that the Bucks have this glaring question mark at the center position now that they sort of shored up defensively. That the guy from the Cavaliers, the Aussie, you know what I'm talking about? The Bucks just signed that point guard from Dellavedova. Yeah, that's
Dellavedova.
his name. Yeah. Who's going to cover point guards on defense. But Greg Monroe was a real problem for them at the center. So I think that, it was just another guy who they can run through at the center position, like John Henson, like Miles Plumlee, like their draft pick Thon Maker this year, where they're just trying to figure out who that cornerstone of their defense is going to be now that they lost Zaza Pachulia. Because they used to be, only 2 or 3 years ago, the second best defense in the league. And now all of a sudden, that's fallen from them. And I think that's just what they're trying to figure out with that signing. Maybe Plumlee can be that guy. Maybe he can't. It's hard for me to believe that he will be, but there's a chance. He's a young guy. He's shown some, signs of being a good defender, but, it is a big number.
Yeah, it's an astronomical number. And I keep having to go back and think of all the Plumlees And yes, he's related to all the Plumlees out there, known for their defense. They're defensive-minded people. That's just who they are. Is it DNA? I don't know. But when I say DNA, I think a do not ask. So, moving forward, you have a wonderful guy who you're going to know who he is. We're talking about flambe jerseys. Yes, LeBron James informed the Cavaliers he's planning on re-signing with the NBA champs. This isn't a good or bad signing. This is a spectacular signing for the Cleveland Cavaliers to keep a staple guy like LeBron James. Question is money. How much is he going to get? Where do you foresee that being forecasted?
Oh, man. I think that LeBron has been at the forefront of this star movement to be more vocal, to be more outspoken, and as far as what their interests, what their demands have been. Chris Paul is the new, the new head of the Players Association, or he's heading it up in the media type of way. So I think that LeBron has really been wrapped up in that process, and when this new CBA is deliberated next year, he's going to be in there saying superstars need to be paid what they're worth. Because, from a revenue sense, LeBron James doesn't just bring in, $100 million to the franchise. He brings on $200 million to the city of Cleveland. So I find it hard to believe that he's going to sign anything more than a one-year deal for the max, because I think he's going to wait, go into that CBA. He's going to deliberate, pound his hand on the table, be like, I want my $50 million contract. And that's what I assume is going to happen. The question is, if that is going to be counted against the CBA, is he willing to hamstring his team like that in a financial sense? And I just don't know.
Well, be it LeBron James and the way that he's approached the game and having to change his perspective year after year, time after time with all the personnel changes and teams that he's been on, look at it from a different perspective maybe. Look, the guy just won a championship, helped win a championship. He wasn't the sole person, but helped win a championship for a team that has ever won one. In a city that doesn't know what championship-ism, yes, I'll call it championship-ism, it's a new word. If you don't learn it, just ask me after the show and I'll tell you all about it. But for a part of the country, Cleveland, Ohio, with the Browns that are there, okay, they're the Browns. And
right.
What does that mean? You have the Indians who went on a winning streak for a while, somehow kind of parred out a little bit. Not that they're not doing anything, but LeBron James doing a lot for that franchise. Right. I see him doing something more and maybe even acquiring those pieces, not counting against the CBA, to get some guys in there that will help him down the road. So a lot of good stuff going on right now. And how do you like the Dario Saric move by the 76ers? Interesting, good sign, bad sign?
Well, I think that a lot of NBA guys are a little skeptical about his fit as far as him next to Ben Simmons, because in a lot of ways they're really similar players. I think they have question marks about what their defense is going to look like with those guys at the small forward and power forward. Is that going to be a little too slow? Are they going to be able to switch well? But to me, I can't think of another rookie pairing in recent NBA history, at least, that has such high potential to be a really dynamic force. I think the two of them on the break, either one of them grabs a rebound, they get down on the offensive end, they're running downhill, Dario can go out to the 3-point line, sort of like a Klay Thompson or something. Ben Simmons is going to try to get to the basket. And I think that you have two 6'10" guys, two pretty quick guys for their size, good ball handlers. Yep. Ben Simmons is not a great shooter, but he can definitely put the ball in the basket. And I think that could be a really good pairing going down the line.
Yep.
It's going to be hard to see, but hopefully, it would be amazing if Ben Simmons could fill out a little bit and then sometimes play the center position. Because, you get Ben Simmons, defending centers, you get 4 more guys around him that are like him and Dario. Right. It would be insane. It would be the new NBA, it'd be great.
All over again.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the 76ers are still a few years out from being the championship caliber team that they really need to be from a shooting perspective, from a defensive perspective. Ben Simmons gives them that tall, objective guy in the middle. And you're right. I completely agree with you. Fill out, gain some weight, get some time in the NBA, and then be more of a center attribution to your team and be able to pair off when you really need to. So good stuff from those guys. Hey, Chris, I don't want to take any more of your time. Thanks a lot for coming on.
Yeah.
Can you tell everybody who's watching and or listening where they can find you and how they can interact with you?
Yeah, so go ahead, follow at Almighty Baller or at Almighty Prophet on Twitter because my site is almightyballer.com. We've got a great podcast network, the Almighty Baller Podcast Network. My show on it is Almighty Ball and the Almighty Podcast. You can probably see a theme here, you know. But
all hail the Almighty.
I'm sorry.
All hail the Almighty.
Right, exactly. You know, I got the sign back here is reserved for clergy only. You know, but yeah, that's sort of our theme, and you know, we have episodes coming out. You know, if not every day, every other day, and you know, we're doing a lot of great stuff, lots of team reviews, lots of great guests, and you know, I appreciate that. You know, go check it out. You know, we're on iTunes, Stitcher, and we got a lot of great articles too.
Yep, sounds good. Got a lot of good stuff. I had a chance to check out the website myself, so anybody out there, go check out Chris the Double Axe Man. I had to change it up for the end of it. You know, you got to go somewhere with it. I'm sure you've had that relation. But anyway, so with that said, Chris Axmann, Rudy Reyes on TheRudeDogShow.com.
Thanks, Rudy.